Hi. I thought I'd try something different than just give you a lecture out of the PowerPoint slides. They're fairly straightforward, general enough. But I thought maybe I'd try some hands-on, maybe I'll do the hands-on project, and you can check the homework. You'll see that I've given you the discovery questions, some of the discovery questions to kind of take the hands-on stuff just a little bit deeper to help you understand. So let's see how this works. So as you can see, I've got a Fedora built, just booted up. Now the instruction says, yeah, command line terminal TT2. Now when you first boot up system, some of you have asked me, okay, why isn't a hit, Control Alt F2 and it doesn't go anywhere? Well, F2 is what you brought when you first booted up. That's what's in there. So if you say, well, if I go to Control Alt F3, it works. Well, now you go into a different terminal. And Linux is a multi-user platform, and this allows you to kind of simulate or emulate what that environment is. So if I'd hit, since I'm in F2, Control Alt F3, it now gives me a place where I can log into. Now the system says, hey, log in as root. So I'm going to go log into root, and voila. As you can tell, I didn't put a password on it. Not very nice, but it did. So now it says ask for ls-f. ls is the list command, as you found out, and the -f is the file. So I hit that and says, hey, it tells me what files are out there. It says I've got at the location of that. Where am I located? I am located pwd. Password says I'm at /root. So the only thing there is root. So if I do a ls-l, say do a list long, it says, hey, that is the only file there. It gives you more data, gives you the permissions, the owner, process ID, the date it was created. Actually, this is the size of the file and the date it was created. Now, if you do the ls-al, that shows you all the files. And so you'll see, a couple of different, we'll use these a little bit later. And all these are, from last chapter, you saw that these are all hidden files. The dot in front of it says it's a hidden file, and as you saw when I did ls or ls-l, you did not see those. So here it says I've got to ls-f. It wants me to do this make-dir. Make-dir is make a directory. So I'm going to do make dir, and it says, oops, let me get back into the right window here. Make dir, and it wants my samples. Now if you do an ls, you see what? I see the name, and I see the name. Now directories will always, at least under Fedora, you'll see them in a different color. So if we do an ls-l, now you see that same thing. Now it says this D tells me it's a directory. These are the permissions, which we'll get into later. Just the numbering saying who created it, who owns it. The default size for a directory is this, and the date it was created. So gives you some information. So now if I want to go under my samples, so change directory, cd, my samples. And now you notice how the prompt now changes to my samples. Before it was tilde, which, as we saw in earlier chapters, that tilde represented your home directory. Now that you did the cd to a different directory, change directory, it now changes that path name to my samples. So now under there, they wanted to make another directory. So get back into that window. Make dir, and I think they wanted under my samples. And of course you do an ls, and you see that's the only thing there. Now, if I do an ls-f, what do you see? You see no files. All it says is the directory. So now I don't have anything else. So now I want to make a directory. So at the command prompt, it says now make another directory. Oops, if I could type, to delete, and press enter. So now if you do your ls, you've got 2 directories. Now if you do ls-f that it asked you for, you just see the indicator that what? It shows you I've got, if you didn't know the highlighted stuff, the slash indicates you've got other directories. Now, if I wanted to change directory, now you can do an absolute change directory, but you have to specify the path name for the entire root, the whole path along from the root of the system all the way to where your file sits. Or you can do a relative path. Now, if I do a cd ... whoops, let me get back in there. cd ... says go back 1 directory, because the period means it's the current working directory. The ... means go back to the previous level. So if I want to hit cd, change directory to ... and now you look at it, went from my samples to my home directory, as you can see by the tilde. So if I do an ls, my computer's acting up. Now I see what? This one file we had, the my samples go through. Now, if you did a ls- capital R, oops, capital R. Now the capital R says, hey, I'm going to, give me something recursively. So now I'm going to go back and say, hey, I'm listing all the directories recursively. So it's going down each of the paths, each leg of your directory structure, and listing that list. So here you said Anaconda was a file. The dot says it's a current working directory. So I got the file anaconda.cfg and the directory my samples. Then it changes directories to my samples. And then you see the 2 directories there, and then it goes to delete and the underskies, so you don't see anything else. But that capital -R gives you a recursive view of everything. So now let's do cd ... give me back up 1 level. pwd says I am where? Oops, I'm at root. So I must have, my system held on to something I didn't expect it to. So let's do change directory and tilde. See the print working directory says I'm at /root. And why am I at root? Because I logged in as root, and that is my home directory. So pwd. So now I'm going to, it says let's, whoops, went one too many. I got to slide back here a little bit. So now pw working directory. Now I'm going to make another directory for user 1. Come on. For user 1. Press enter. And then, of course, if you do ls-f, you now see for user 1, my samples are created. And they would tell you to exit and log on. So we're just going to keep right on going here. And go, now we're going to bypass that to do the ls-fs. Now we're going to look at how do I copy. That's what this CP is. The CP says copy command. So where am I at? I'm at, see, they did at the root, ls-f, and I want to do a CP. Let me get back in here. CP sample 1. It gave me an error message. It stated, you didn't tell me where where's it going? Where's the copy command going to? So you need to have a source and a destination on the copy command. Let me get back over here. So now let's do the CP command. Now, if you wanted to simplify some of the typing you do, you can hit the arrow key, and it kind of saves a history of the commands you did. So in this case, I'm doing sample 1 space sample capital A. Whoops. Sample A. And press enter. And it goes, wait a minute. Sample A doesn't exist. Why? Or sample 1 doesn't exist. Because it says, hey, you're trying to copy something. You're copying something that doesn't exist. So how does it know what you're trying to do? So that's kind of what you need to do. So now let's see if we needed to create. Let's see if we can do. See sample 1, sample 2, press enter, type X, ls-f. Let's see if we do. See if it created anything. It did not create anything. So if I did, how would I create a file so that we can copy? So in this case, go vi sample 1. Now remember, it gives you this. We saw this in the last chapter. So I'm going to hit I to go to insert mode, and this is going to be sample 1. And I'm going to hit escape to get out of insert mode. I'm going to hit colon, I'm going to write it, and I'm going to quit. And now if I go back and do an ls-l, now what do you see? I see a sample 1 there. So there we go. So what do we need? So now if I want to copy sample 1 into something else. So in this case, if I want to copy sample 1, and it asks you to go to my samples, sample B. Oops. Now you notice I made a typo, so I can use the back arrow, backspace, hit my slash, and hit enter. So you can use that cursor to change those directories. So now let's see. I probably need to create my sample. So let me do something else here. We want to make let me do the up arrow. And we'll go back. So I just kept going, hitting the up arrow back to get to the point where I created that previous command. So now if you do the ls command, you see what? Sample A, sample 1, my samples, which we just copied that in. Now, that tells you all those. So now if I want to change directories to my samples, you see the prompt changes, you do the ls, and what do I got? I created the 2 directories I created plus the sample B. So that's kind of what you see there. Now, so you can tell that sample, I guess it should have been sample 1B, but oh well, we'll make it work. So in this case, so we got everything we needed. Now, what happens if I wanted to create, it says here, cp/root/sample2 period to the current working directory, and see what happens. It says, no such file exists, which makes sense since we did not create it. So in that case, what do we want to do? I have to, but you see what this copy command did? It allowed me to give this is the full path name of, so all the way from root, from slash, all the way up. So that is the not the relative, but it's the full path name that gets you to that directory. So you could have done it, or you could get access to it. You could have done it with a relative path name. So if we did, so let's do something different. CP, because I'm still under my sample. I'm going to come on. I think my mouse is being overly sensitive here. I'm having to hit it too often. So now I'm going to do CP root, and I want to, I want to copy from there. So I want to copy root. I want to do what? We had sample 1, and I want to make it, in this case, we want to make it what? Sample 2. Sample 2. So now it says I'm copying from the parent directory, went back one directory, hit sample 1, going on to sample 2, and put it in the current working directory. So because I was under my samples, so now if you hit, an LS, come on. So now I got sample 2, sample B, underneath that directory. So I didn't have to go back to another directory. I didn't have to give it the full path name. I gave it a relative path name. Now, if you wanted to, you could create, so let's go back up one level. Whoops. CD back up space, because you can tell I missed the space in between the commands. So now it's asking you to CP sample 1, sample 2. I don't have a sample 3 yet, but just letting you know. So I can create my sample LES to my samples 2. It says, what's going on? I got an error message because I didn't specify the recursive function, so it knows that my samples is a directory and moving on. So if I go up one, move the arrow key over, do space -R, hit enter, and now if I do an LS, so what do I see? I see my sample, my samples 2. Let's see what's in LS, my samples 2. And it shows you I got my 2 delete under samples, sample 2, sample B. So you can tell that these commands I can copy, I can list. I don't have to go to the certain directories to make those things happen. So it gives you a lot of flexibility, but you have to pay attention to where you're located and where you want to go to, whether you're going to use a full path name or a relative path name. So now the next thing we want to do is, let me slide back down here again. So now I've copied things. Now the next command I want to worry about is the move command. And move command allows me to, one, move folder, files from point A to point B. It allows me to basically move them and give them a new name and copy them. So in this case, we're at root because we just logged in again. Capital -F. I need to get my, okay, I'm not sure. -F, and it gives me my sample 1, sample A, my directories. And now let's see, if I want to move, of course, if you move sample 1 and it says print answer, what do you think? You're going to get an error message because what? The same thing with the copy, you're not giving it a destination. So if I do move 1 to, sample 4. So now I do the ls-f for just the files and not everything else. So what do I get? I got sample 4. It says, wait a minute, what happened to sample 1? Well, what did we do? We moved it. So basically, we just renamed sample 1 to sample 4. So move can then rename things. Now it says, okay, let's move sample 4 to my samples. So it's going to move it from a file to a directory, which is what my samples is, because we can tell by the color. And if I do an ls of my samples, there we got sample 4 has been moved to that location. Now, is it in my current directory? And in this case, you can tell it's been moved. So you can move it to different directories. You can specify. So it's kind of a neat tool to be able to use. ls, the move, let's see, move samples. The move will still work with, if you wanted to specify a rename, in this case, my samples, sample 2, it would rename this thing. Here you're seeing a move, and you're using one of the wildcards to say, match any character here and go through. You got the LSFS. Here again, you're saying I'm moving and I'm doing asterisk, because it's going to tell, and then it's going to prompt you saying, hey, do you really want to make this global move? So that's just an interesting way of going through it. So different ways of identifying files, the asterisk, wildcards, all characters, single characters, your way of doing it. So move will handle that just fine. So just play with the move command and go through. So let's look at the next one here. We've got ls-f. So now what am I doing? I'm going to look at viewing the links. So the question is, what is a link? And a link is, hey, how do I get to that file? Because this file is stored someplace on the server. So which way is it? So let's do, I want to do cd samples. I think my mouse is, oops. cd my samples. Do an ls-f to find out what files are there. You got a couple of files there. Now I want to see. I don't have a sample 1. So let's see. Do I have a sample 1 someplace else? Yes, I do. Let's see. That is located. So let's copy /sample 1 to the current directory. So I'm copying the previous up to this location. I thought I had one. Sample A. So let's do this then. Let's go back. Gotta go sample A. 2, and we'll just keep things relatively consistent here. So I'm saying go back up to the previous directory, copy sample A, and rename it to copy sample 1. So now if you do the list, you see sample, sample 2, sample B. Whoops. Yep, there's sample 1 there. Okay, so now I want to what they call a link to a file. So now I want to do a ln command, sample 1, hard link, sample. And of course, I need to figure out why my mouse is not working. link. So we've got sample 1, and it's doing hard link sample. So now it says, okay, now let's do an ls-li, which now tells me it's looking for what they call an inode, and that's where we're storing all the links. And here all of a sudden you see, what do I see? I see directories. I see a hard link here. So that's the one we created. Who created, who owns it, and stuff like that. So, all right, let me get back to this. Now we did the ls-i, and you see our new file. Now what happens if I do, let me make sure I need to fix this. If I do an ls-l, there's my link too. So I've got everything there that I need. So as you can see, we can do an ls-l, press enter. What else can it tell me? What else does it show me that we need to worry about? In this case, looks like both are together. I've got my link. I've got everything else. So let's just go on to the next page. So now let's do it. See if I can get this thing to. So I want to do my computer is acting up. There you go, ln sample 1 hard link sample 2. So I do ls-l, and again I've got, but now what do you notice? What do you notice? When we did this before, we did it just a straight ls without the links, what did you see? You saw these notes here. The directories had a 2, the current directory and the files we created had 1, and now all my links are saying, hey, I've got a level 3. So there is something different. So now if I want to, it says ask me to to get a new mouse. It wants me to sample 1, enter that, and says, yep, this is sample 1. So that's cool. So we entered a simple command, so we're going to hit escape. Well, actually we didn't hit insert, so I can just hit control quit. So I've got data in there, got my prompt back. So now it says I want to concatenate sample 1. So sample 1, and just list out the file. It concatenated, it showed me. Now if I wanted to do cat of hard link sample, I see the same thing. Now wait a minute, we didn't copy anything, but what happened? It's the same information. And basically all it did was it created a connection between sample 1 and the hard link sample. And if we did the same thing for hard link 2 or sample 2, we should expect to see the same thing. So just knowing that the contents are the same, because all I'm linking to is to one source. All right, I'm back. Let's see, we had the different files, we catted each of those out, we typed this. So now let's look at, see if my computer's going to act up again. ln-s sample2 to SYM LINK sample. Now this is saying I'm going to do a symbolic link. So now you got, so now if we do an ls-F here, now what do you see? So not only do I don't have just links to separate files, you see now I got it. It comes up with a different character, dash, whoops. I definitely do need to get my mouse fixed. Let's see, it's asking for ls-L on this file stuff. And now you go like, But now what you see is here, I got a symbolic link, and instead of just the other way we did a link, one, you see here, you get the L in front indicating that it's a link, and two, it's telling you it's a link to what? I'm pointing to sample file 2. So you get two indicators that there is a link going on, so that it gives you an idea. So now let's look at, I see the difference there, so it says to do cat sample 2, and it says, wait a minute, it's called sample 1. So that's telling me I must have, what did we do? We copied sample 1 to sample 2, so I get that same message. So if we wanted to, what happens if I, edit my symbolic link, vi SYM. I've only got one file with symbolic. I'm just going to hit an asterisk here to say match any character after SYM, and it gets here, and it says, So now let's enter. Let's go hit I for insert. Oops, let me go back a space. I want to go to the end of this line. I want to make sure that go to the end of this line, new line, link, hit escape, control right, quit, and voila. So now if we do cat, let me just hit the arrow key. I want to do cat sample 2 again. And said, now wait a minute, what happened? I added the symbolic link, but so the data, when you're linking two files together, so as you're making changes to them, you're changing both files. So you got to be careful when you're using links on how you're going to change that. So so now it says, so I'm at root, I think. So it's asking me to cat contents ls-ls. So now let's look at ln-s/etc, and sysconfig network scripts space net scripts, which is the next command they said, and let's hit enter. And it in. So now it says let's do -f to see what exists. And now if I can slide my picture out of the way, there we go, that's even better. So now I've got what? I've got now a new script, a link, symbolic link to net scripts. So now it says, let's go CD to net script. Net scripts, and it changed that parameter. Let's do an ls. They're like, oh my gosh, look at all these functions. So these are system scripts, because you're looking at system configuration, network scripts. We just created a new one, and created a new folder which says, hey, I'm going to link all of these network scripts, all the scripts that were under network scripts, and I'm going to link them to net scripts. And when you do that, all of these links come together. So it gives you an idea as to how scripts and copy and files become important. Now, I'm trying to think here. Find, change directories. Find is relatively straightforward. One thing I want to show you here is, let's cd home, back to our home directory, and we're going to, I want to show you at least one command. If we do echo $path, that is the, whoops, if I could type. This is where the system is going to look for all the commands that exist. So when you type in a command, it's going down this path trying to find an example of that path, of that command. So this path command says search in /user share modules bin. If it's not there, go to local sbin. If it's not there, go to local bin, so on and so forth. So it's going through this sequence of searching for a command to make sure it exists. So that's something else. Now, we've created directories. You can remove directories. I mean, you can remove files. You can remove directories. Now, the one command, oops, slide back here a little bit, that you want to really be careful with, this one here, this rm-rf, that says I am going to remove every file in that path. So if you would give it a directory structure and says remove -rf, that says recursively go through my subdirectories and remove everything. So you just got to be a little bit careful with that. Let's see, if I wanted to, let's go back to home. So need to figure out pwd, I'm at root, do-l. Now you notice these letters up here. That tells me the type of file and the permission. So you've got the D is a directory, a dash says it's a file. I've got so you've got owner, group, and others. So there are three different categories here where I've got, it's a directory. The owner has read, write, and execute permissions, but I've got read and execute for both anybody else in my group or anybody else in the outside world that has access to my directory. So you're going to play some games in the homework assignments to change this, and you do this with the change mode command. Change mode, and I'm going to take sample A, and I'm going to change it. And change mode is a couple of different ways, but I like the old-fashioned way. Now, old-fashioned is, we're talking about, I got 3 bits, it's an octal number. So you have to remember base 8. So octal 777 says I'm going to change that. So what do you expect to have happen? That means I've got all ones in this octal configuration, and I'm going to do sample A. And then if I do the ls-l, and now you see this read, write, and execute. So it went from the owner can read and write, I can read it, but now anybody could read, write, and execute it. So if this happened to be a script of some kind or a program of some kind, you could do that. Let's see anything else I wanted to cover here. I know there's a lot of stuff, but now here you see I can change the ownership or change mod by, instead of 777, you could do change and then owner and world. Those can change. So you can change it, same thing by doing the graphic presentation or the numbers. You got one of the homework assignments going to let you play with trying to match up numbers to this. Let's see, what else do I want to try to cover in this? Make directory, change group. Change group says, hey, I can change this middle group, because right now here's my group. I created it. My group is in the same thing. I created it, still the same group. So, but you can change who the group is. Let's see. Touch is an interesting command. It actually just kind of creates a file that doesn't exist or resets the time slot the clock, the file was created in. Let me kind of skim through a few others here to see if there's anything else. Changing attributes, I'll let you play with that one. So I think that covers most of what I want us to do in this chapter. So hopefully this video it's long. So play it a few times, and let me know if you'd rather see presentation of the PowerPoint or videos of some of the examples. So let me know. Thanks.